Back at it. Chapter 3, 2 Corinthians. I would encourage you to read it over and over. I mean, if I just sit here and read this over and over, it's just a delight to my soul. It feeds me. It's wonderful. It just gives me great hope of glory. By the way, Christ's in you, the hope of glory and the hope of righteousness. We do wait for the hope of righteousness, Paul said in Galatians 5. And it's not a hope that for heaven, the by and by, the sweet by and by. True, there's going to be perfection there. When that which is perfect is done, when that which is perfect has come, then the old will be done away with. And speaking of the old, Paul is contrasting. I want you to read it yourself, kind of. I don't want to explain it all, and I can't explain it all anyway. Layers and layers. But there's an old covenant, there's a new covenant. There's an old ministry, there's a new ministry. An old government, a new government. An old dispensation, a new dispensation. And so this is what he's saying here. This is verse 9. Should I go to back at 8? Let's do 8. It says, you could go back, and then kind of connect it all. How shall not the ministration of the Spirit be rather glorious? But listen to what it says. Well, he's saying, right there, it's talking about tablets, tables, stone tables, which was chiseled by the finger of God, which is great. He wrote it out. But the fact is, we have a New Testament on the fleshly tables of the heart, Paul has mentioned before. And as a matter of fact, it's in this book. It might be in that chapter right there. Anyway, think about it. Anyway, so this is so good. And so he says this ministry or this administration, the Old Testament, is one that condemns. The law just shuts us up. I'm quoting Romans and all. The law puts us guilty because there's so many laws to obey, and I'm sentenced guilty. I break them. This is what he's saying. If that one, which is the Old Testament, was so glorious, and it's like the beautiful moon at night in the darkness of the world. God gives Israel the moon and the stars, so to speak, to start shining the truth of God and his ways and morality into the human race. And it's beautiful moonshine, But then the New Testament comes, and this is how it's been put. This is not original, but the sun comes. So you have a moon and the sun. When the sun comes up, the glory of the other one is gone. It's hidden. It's still there. The moon is still there, but you can't see it because of the brightness of the sun. And Moses, by the way, even when he got close to God, he came off the mountain shining bright. He looked like a human light bulb, basically. It was so bright they had to put veils over. He had to put a veil over his face because of how bright. And if that is the glory of the old covenant, how much more the glory of the new, one that is actually inside. So the inside, it's not just outside, external thing that happens. Jesus Christ comes in, you get born again, and now you've got the glory of that Old Testament and New Testament inside you. It's a new covenant. This is really super sweet. The glory of the law of God inside your heart. I will write them on their hearts, he says in Jeremiah 31:31. Verse 9, it says, for if the ministration of condemnation be glory, how splendid, like glory meaning, you could say brilliance, the beauty, the shining, the light, like the moon. And then when the New Testament comes, he says it's dazzling, like so bright. It is. It's like so gorgeous, so wonderful. He says in verse 9, for if the administration of condemnation, the law of God in the Old Testament condemns, it puts you in a position of guilt. And it says, how much more, or much more, I love that, much more, that's throughout the scriptures, especially the New Testament. Much more does the ministration, here it is, of righteousness exceed in glory. So one is a process condemning you. And then the New Testament, which is higher laws, Jesus said, you've heard it been said, but I say to you 6 different areas of the law where he says this is far deeper. This is what the understanding and the truth is of the Old Testament. And it's harder. Don't murder, now don't get angry. Blah, 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 all that. It's higher laws. Yet, he says, it's a ministration of righteousness, not condemnation. Now, one could argue the case that, well, they're condemned, now you're justified, which is true. You're made righteous. You're called righteous. But do you think again that he's going to say, I'm going to give you righteousness, this glorious, new covenant that is a covenant in the heart, which he goes on and says here, is down inside. Do you think that's not going to, you're just going to continue sinning just like the Old Testament saints and all that? I don't think so. It's a ministration, it's an application of the ministry of righteousness. And so Paul's saying this is glorious. It is way better than the Old Testament. The Old Testament, even there were blameless people, and they weren't perfect, but there were righteous people, throughout the Old Testament. Even Noah and all the way up to Zacharias and under the Old Covenant and Elizabeth, they were called blameless and righteous. There's a lot of them back there. But and Job and all that, even he's the first one, probably the first book written, he was righteous. Have you considered my servant Job, which is, none righteous like him who fears God and all that. Really sweet passage, sweet bragging of God on his servant Job. Now we're sons, and we have something that comes inside us which they couldn't get. Christ comes in you. He had to wait till the resurrection to be able to dwell in people, and then the righteous one lives that righteousness out. That's far glorious. Just like the sun is far brighter than the moon. Do you understand what I'm saying? Oh. It's like way different. That's what Paul's saying. It's really big time different. Much more. So when he says much more, it can't be just because they were declared righteous. God he winked at their ignorance and winked over their sin because he knew Jesus Christ was coming. He he tolerated a lot more in the sense of, he didn't, he saw the sin in their beings and all that. He's tolerating now a lot. But anyway, I could go into where he also did a lot of judgments on them, but they saw God's miracles and everything, so it upped the ante of his judgment. Regardless, when the law came, they were all just locked up. They were guilty, declared guilty. They're sentenced and all that. So the good news of the New Testament is you're not sentenced. The sentence is taken away. You're scot-free. You're innocent. You're declared innocent as if you've never even sinned. True, that's righteousness, but it's got to be more than that, because otherwise you continue in sin. It's not that, it's like the Old Testament, it's not that much more. All right, so much more does a ministration of righteousness exceed in glory. And I would propose to you that when he says a ministration of righteousness, again, I'm kind of saying it another way, is that he not only declares you righteous, he makes you righteous. And now you're living right, really right, regularly right. You're living in righteousness. You're walking in righteousness like nobody's business. Nobody in the Old Testament could do this to this degree. And he says, well, then he goes on, and I'll finish there. But if you read on, I'll kind of touch on it. For even that which was made glorious had no glory in this respect, or reason the glory that excelleth. I will mention that. It's almost like it's not even seen, kind of like the sun outshining the moon where it's not even seen. It's still there, and the Old Testament is useful. Covenant is still covenant, and the laws of God are really good to read and still devour in there. There's a lot in there that's really good. But anyway, there you go. I hope that wasn't too much blabbing without meaning. I hope you understood. I hope I did it well. Thanks for listening.